It is a poem which is often referred to as quaint or nice, even whimsical. It is a poem that has been dumbed down for Emily Dickinson to having a single word title by which it is often referred: snowflake, snowflakes, snowflakes. What if I told you that this whimsical, quaint, nice poem, which is summarized by the single word snowflakes, is actually something much more brilliant and serious below the surface? Of course, you would believe me, because it's Emily Dickinson. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear, of course, in 3 separate playlists here on the channel. Number 1 being the poetry discussion playlist, now careening towards 600 videos strong. Number 2, the Emily Dickinson playlist. And number 3, the Reading in a Winter Wonderland playlist, celebrating here in December 2024 all things winter, all literary things winter. Is it the cold? Is it the snow? Is it the ice? Etc. You know what it is. Today's poem reads as such. I counted till they danced so, their slippers leaped the town, and then I took a pencil to note the rebels down, and then they grew so jolly, I did resign the prig, and 10 of my once stately toes are marshaled for a jig. It's easy to see that as a quaint poem. It's easy to understand the whimsy of seeing the snow and it making you want to dance. But what does this poem show you without telling you? Let's read it one more time. What are some things that you can pick up on that are not explicitly told to you by the poem? I counted till they danced so, their slippers leaped the town, and then I took a pencil to note the rebels down, and then they grew so jolly, I did resign the prig, and 10 of my once stately toes are marshaled for a jig. What is our speaker's role at the beginning of this poem? The speaker of this poem, the owner of those stately toes, at the beginning of the poem is recording, writing, right? I took a pencil to note the rebels down. Now we know, because we were here sitting with the poem, that recording, those notes, they're poetry. But so stifled, perhaps, is this speaker, so cloistered within her own world, that the act of poetry sounds no more interesting than accounting. And then I took a pencil to note the rebels down. So we have the speaker here revealing something about herself to the reader. The poetry that in which our speaker is engaging seems to be second nature. Doesn't have a choice. That poetry is happening one way or another. That seems to be our speaker's station in life. But it seems that our speaker has mashed this down into the mundane. Our speaker is taking something so stately as poetry and relegating it to noting the rebels down. And then we have something interesting happening here. So we have the idea of the speaker as someone who has maybe removed the joy from the very art of poetry. And then they grew so jolly, I did resign the prig. You know what a prig is? Well, it's interesting. It's an interesting word, and part of the reason that it's interesting is it is a contronym. It is a word that means one thing and also basically means its exact opposite. A prig is a word that is used to describe pickpockets, thieves, swindlers, these sorts of people. It's also a word that is used to describe prudes, goody-goodies, people who are prim and proper. It is a word that simultaneously describes people that are too reserved and people who have no reservations. But that makes it precisely the perfect word for this poem. I counted till they danced so, their slippers leaped the town. And then, being the prude that I am, being the goody-goody that I am, the thing that I could do was take a pencil to note the rebels down. I am the reserved. The snowflakes are those without reservation. I am the prude, the prim, the proper, the goody-goody, noting down the snowflakes being the pickpockets, being the rakes, being the swindlers. And then, in the presence of these rakes, these individuals, the snowflakes, without reservation, I did resign the prig. And 10 of my once stately toes are marshaled for a jig. Our goody-goody, our poet in speaker, noted down the snowflakes and decided, hey, that rebel stuff looks pretty good. I think I'm going to do me some of that. Our speaker sees the rebel snowflakes and is a prudish prig while she's observing them, notes them down, and becomes the type of prig who has no reservations. This poem might not be I Died for Beauty. This poem might not be Because I Could Not Stop for Death. This poem might not be any number. I Tried to Think a Lonelier Thing. There's so many poems in the Emily Dickinson canon that are immediately heavy, immediately important, immediately literary. This poem does not seem, at onset, to be that. This poem seems, at onset, very whimsical. I'll allow it. But there's certainly more roiling under the surface than simply that. In that way, this is one of the poems from Emily Dickinson that almost reminds me the most of Shakespeare. Shakespeare often does have a sense of the whimsical about it. It often does have a sense of fright and folly, if you will, about it. This poem has a little bit of that as well. It has some of this, it has something which seems almost festive. Doesn't have to be festive. It's got the word jolly in it, I understand. But the way that Shakespeare feels festive because it does not feel like normal life. It feels like an exception to the mundane. This poem feels like an exception to the mundane to me in that same way. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. There's poetry every Monday, and I hope to have you back for the next one.